In a world where fantasy football has taken over the land, two unlikely heroes will arise. They call themselves the Fantasy Football Apocalypse. But who are they?
Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy, yes, they are the boys. When it comes to fantasy advice, they got the noise. One's a little loud, and he's far from cautious. His voice alone will turn your stomach nauseous. MC number 2, well, it's just not that simple. Some would even question that he's borderline mental. These two combined will try to be funny, but their main goal is to try to make you money, 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 money.
Oh, yes! Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Fantasy Football Apocalypse. I am Trent Scott, joined once again by Jeremy Scott.
Welcome back. Always good to be here talking about fantasy football. We really appreciate all you guys listening. We've seen our numbers increase as our viewers, and we're very excited to see that. And lets us know that we have some at least somewhat decent material going on. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys.
Oh, by the way, real quick, I want to mention we haven't thanked him in a couple of weeks. That awesome theme song you just heard, got to give it up to Aaron Bennett, our friend, for recording that for us.
Absolutely. Check him out on YouTube. Check him out on Instagram. Check him out on MySpace.
But anyway, so as Jeremy and I have talked about in weeks past, we're both in the same league. And as far as I'm concerned, it is basically a holiday today because it is draft day for our league.
Yes, this is one of the most exciting days of the year. I mean, at least for me, and I know Trent, I speak for Trent as well. Draft day, and this is a league, again, that we've been in for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Not to give away our ages, but we've been in it for a long time, and it's such an awesome thing. Everybody in the league has come back this year, which, you know how far that goes, so pretty awesome day.
Yeah, so to help us celebrate today, we're bringing in another one of the members of that league as a special guest today. So joining us now is Aaron Rieke. How's it going, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be on the show.
Yeah, welcome, man. We're excited. Now, Aaron is our what we would like to call the Houston Texans specialist. He's a longtime diehard Texans fan. He lives in the area. He's got some exciting information about Arian Foster coming later in the show. But let's go ahead and get to the material, Trent.
Well, actually, but before we dive in, I think, Aaron was listening to our show last week, and I kind of put him on blast at the end of the show when I brought up a trade that the two of us made a couple years ago. So, Aaron, you kind of wanted to defend yourself over this whole Andre Johnson trade, I think?
Yeah. We would really like to break down of what was going through your mind.
I mean, I feel like after just getting destroyed last episode, I have to at least try to give myself some dignity, get some respect back. But I think it kind of just has to do with how I try to manage my teams in standard Yahoo or ESPN leagues. I try to make sure that every single player on my team has value going into the playoffs. So with that trade with Trent, I basically gave him everybody on my bench that had value in order to get the best possible player. So that way I could have just 2 wideouts, 2 running backs, and a tight end and a quarterback. That's all I really had. I had nothing on my bench to try and playoffs, get all the points I could. So it ended up looking terrible at the end because I think Andre Johnson even got injured again.
Yeah, I believe he missed another 4 games after the trade.
But there's not a lot of defending on that trade.
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah, remind us the trade again, Trent. I mean,
so, and I would also like to point out,
people have forgotten.
Aaron offered this trade. This wasn't a trade that I sent to him as a joke or anything. This is a trade he offered me. I gave up Andre Johnson, and in exchange, I got Roddy White, Brandon Marshall, and Antonio Gates. 3 for 1.
And also adding on that, Andre Johnson was injured.
He was injured.
But you have to consider, it'd be like Andre Johnson was like a top five player before he was injured. So I'd be expecting to get back like an Antonio Brown, like putting it in like this year's terms, and I would be trading like probably a couple top 20 wide receivers, and then I also had another tight end that would be better than Antonio Gates. So at the time, it made sense, but it just blew up in my face, and I don't even think I made playoffs that year, unfortunately.
To be fair, you were the only one in the league who it made sense to, though.
That is fair enough.
But anyway, enough.
Glad you had a chance to explain yourself, Aaron.
Yeah, enough of bashing on Aaron. Let's get to the show. So what we're going to do this week, for those of you who listened last week, Jeremy and I gave you some guys that we think have the potential to break out this year. So what we're doing this week is we're doing the exact opposite. We're going to give you guys that we think you should stay away from. So we're going to go ahead and get started at the quarterback position. So Aaron, since you're our guest, how about you go first? What quarterback are you staying away from this year?
All right, so for my first QB that I think is not worthy of you being drafted is Cam Newton. Man, losing Kelvin Benjamin really hurts. But honestly, before Kelvin Benjamin, who did he even have to throw? Or even before he lost Kelvin Benjamin, he had Benjamin and Olsen. That was really it. They're kind of a run-first team to begin with. I don't know. I'm not so sure. I don't think I'd take him at all. Not even where he's being drafted. I just don't even want him as a roster spot on my team.
Right. I agree 100%. As far as Cam Newton, I would leave him on the free agent wire if it were up to me. I agree with that completely. Devin Funchess has not even played. Other guys are dropping passes in the end zone like crazy. It is a black hole in Carolina this year. Run for your life.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty hard to argue with that. There's just nobody there for him to work with, so I think that's a definite stay away from. So, Jeremy, who's going to be the quarterback you want to stay away from?
This pains me. It's not even necessarily stay away from. It's just I feel like he's going earlier than he should be. Now, Peyton Manning is going very early. There's been some questionable things come up with him as far as he does not have feeling in his fingertips. Admittedly so. He still doesn't have it because of his neck injury. To me, that's a little bit scary. However, he is Peyton Manning. He's still Peyton Manning. I don't care how old he is. And he's going to produce, my thinking is the fact that Sam Bradford, who goes 10 for 10, 120 yards and 3 touchdowns in a quarter and a half, there's guys like that going in the, like the freaking 9th round, 10th round. So there's just, quarterbacks are deep this year. I don't think it's necessary to reach unless you're getting a Rodgers or Luck, potentially even Breeze, but that's my 2 cents on the quarterback position.
As a Texans fan, it's just scary having Gary Kubiak as your quarterback when you want, or as your coach when you want to have your quarterback put up stats. I don't think that's a recipe for success.
I mean,
that's an interesting point as well.
Here's the thing with Peyton. He's, like Jeremy said, his current average draft position is 37.5, which basically makes him the first pick of the 4th round, the number 5 quarterback off the board. Let's be honest, there are significant injury concerns here. He did not look at all the same at the end of last year. Plus, we already saw the Broncos change into a more run-heavy offense anyway at the end of last season, and I don't know why anyone would expect them to revert back to the pass-happy offense they used to be. I think you're going to get a lot of C.J. Anderson, which means less of Peyton Manning. So I think that's a pretty good pick.
Interesting, very interesting. Trent, who's your quarterback to stay away from?
So along those same lines, this is a guy who I really like personally, but I look at his average draft position and I just don't see it making sense. And so my quarterback is Russell Wilson, who's going as the number 3 quarterback in drafts right now. He's going in the 2nd or 3rd round, and as much as I like Russell Wilson, I mean, this is a guy that threw 20 touchdowns last year. He is not a monster stat performer. So I'm staying away from Russell Wilson that early.
Yeah, he is going early. I agree with that. The thing about Russell, and I had him last year on actually the team that I won the championship with. Now, Russell Wilson can have 0 points at halftime, and he will finish with 15 because of his legs. They're not pulling a Washington Redskins, try to turn him into a pocket passer. They're letting Russell do his thing. So that's going to be continuous. However, I do think he's going early. Quarterbacks are deep. But I don't think you'll be disappointed if you were to take Russell. I guess it just depends on your strategy. What do you think, Aaron?
I guess I'm just interested to see how he looks with Jimmy Graham. I mean, they brought him in there because they want to try to develop into more of a passer. I'm kind of interested to see how he is. I mean, I think he could get more looks passing, and we know the running's going to be there. So I do think it's a little bit early, though. So I think I can definitely see the argument.
So that's gonna be the quarterbacks we want to stay away from. Let's go ahead and move ahead now to the running backs. Aaron, what running back are you staying away from?
Okay, so let me just preface this. You could definitely draft him, but I just think where he is right now, being taken in drafts, Jeremy Hill is being taken way too early. Giovanni Bernard is still in Cincinnati. He got injured week 8 last year, but he's definitely still there. I just think there's so much of a recency bias. Jeremy Hill blew up last year at the end of the year, but Giovanni Bernard was still getting carries, and he's going to catch everything. So I like, with my first 2 picks, if I'm getting a running back, someone that's going to be able to catch and run, especially in PPR. I just can't see Jeremy Hill catching anything this year.
Well, okay, here's my thoughts on this. And for those of you that don't know, I love Jeremy Hill because I picked him up last year, and he led the league in rushing the second half of the year. I also want to comment the recency complex. I've never heard that. I really like that. Or whatever you said. But,
recency bias.
Anyway, recency bias. That's what. I never heard that. Now, Jeremy Hill, they're committed to the run. I've done some digging because I was curious with this whole Jeremy Hill thing as well. The offensive coordinator, I can't remember who it is, but they're saying that Jeremy Hill is the guy, and Giovanni's touches will be significantly decreased this year. I think that's a wise decision for the Bengals, and I think that puts a lot of faith in Jeremy Hill. Plus, we all know that Jeremy Hill is a stud. So I say take Jeremy Hill, especially with the late round second pick.
So, Jeremy, you say take Jeremy Hill. Who do you say not to take?
It pains me to say this because you know how big of an Eagles fan I am. I'm actually staying away from DeMarco Murray. I didn't have a chance to watch this last Eagles game, but the one before that, DeMarco led them all the way down the field, and then they pulled him, put Ryan Matthews in, and he got the touchdown. However, he did end up getting a touchdown later, but we saw what happened with LaShawn McCoy last year, and it looks like it's going to be the same thing.
Man, I really think that Marco Murray could have a big year. Just with the amount of touches that they get in Philly, it doesn't really matter how many guys they have. He's going to be out there. He's going to be catching. He's going to be running. I mean, I would take him at the end of the second round without too much concern.
The end of the second round? There's no way he's going that late. He's going into the first or middle of the second.
Early. I think he's going early second round.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to the end of the first.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Wow. I don't think you're getting him nearly that late, Aaron.
So, Trent, why don't you go ahead and give us your last running back?
All right, so the running back, to me, I absolutely do not understand why he is going where he's going. I'm utterly perplexed. Not only is he currently... So, the guy I'm picking is Adrian Peterson. He is currently the number 2 overall pick coming off the board. I don't think he's even a guaranteed top 10 running back. I am so far out on Adrian Peterson, and there's several reasons why. First off, he's 30 years old. Everyone knows that's the age at which running backs slip. This is a guy who just missed 15 games last year. He played in one game. He played in the first game and then missed the rest of the season. And he has significant injuries in his past. So I'm supposed to believe that a 30-year-old that has a huge injury history and missed a season is going to come back and be the number 2 player in the NFL. And let's not forget that even the year before that, in 2013, he only ran for 1,200 yards and had his second career lowest yards per carry. He was coming off a down year and then missed an entire year, and now he's going to be the number 2 player in the league? I don't buy that for 1 second.
Wow, that was a lot of passion. But I agree with you, Trent. I've been out on Peterson. It's the Plaxico Burress complex. I mean, remember what happened? Plaxico Burress shot himself in the leg, missed the season while he was elite, and then came back and never performed. Now, it was later in Plaxico's career, but again, like you're saying, all very valuable information. 30 is the year, that they start to decline. So, again, if Peterson has not played one preseason game, he's not going to play a snap until week 1. I mean, what the heck is he going to do? We have no idea.
See, I actually kind of like Adrian Peterson this year. What quarterbacks has he had the past, 5 years when he's been playing? He's had nothing. Christian Ponder. This year he's got Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater's got Charles Johnson, Mike Wallace to throw to. They could actually have to respect the pass. I think Peterson, I do see the concerns with him not playing all of last year, but he's proven he does it every year. I can't see why you wouldn't take him with top 5, top 3 even pick.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I could talk about this all day. That is the one player I feel most strongly about that I just don't understand. Like I said, I'm not even sure he's a top 10 running back, let alone number 2 overall. So, since I could talk about that all day, I'm not going to.
Thank God.
Let's go ahead and move on to wide receivers, guys. So, Aaron, what wide receiver are you out on?
I am out on Alshon Jeffrey. I don't have super strong feelings against Alshon Jeffrey, but that injury last year just scared me. He's only done it for 1 year. I don't know. I think there's just other guys that I would rather take where he's being drafted mid-third round, maybe even early third. I guess it is early third round. That's just risky to me. He's really the only guy they've got at wideout. It's just a concern. I would not take him there.
Very interesting situation with Alshon this year. There's a lot of different factors coming into play. They got a new offensive coordinator. Now Cutler is still Cutler. We can't forget he's going to throw 30 interceptions. But the Bears are going to be down big, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. What I don't like is the number 2. I believe it's Eddie Royal right now, who is not a legitimate threat. He's more of like a 3 receiver, as we saw in with the Chargers the last few years. Now, my point is, they're going to be double-teaming Alshon, which they were double-teaming Brandon Marshall the past 3 years. So that's how Alshon came to prominence. However, Alshon is still a freak athlete. He can make catches, but he's not a big yards guy. He's more like a one catch for 10 yards type dude. So it's very interesting. I could see Alshon getting a lot of targets. He just has too many games for a number 1 wide receiver for me that are 2 catches for 15 yards, and I can't do that.
Yeah, to me, I'm looking at it right now. His average draft position is 24.0, which would make him the last pick of the second round. And, I mean, really, to reiterate what you guys said, Jay Cutler's a disaster. We all know it. Brandon Marshall is gone. There's no reason for them for defenses to focus on anything but Jeffrey. So I would be very leery of making him my top wide receiver. Now, Jeremy, who would you be leery of making your top wide receiver?
I don't even want to say it. My top receiver that I am out on is a Dear Aggie. His name is Mike Evans.
Oh,
it's very painful for me to not accept him. I just don't like what I'm seeing. Number 1, Jameis Winston. Everyone knows if you've listened to 1 minute of any of these podcasts that I can't stand Jameis Winston. People are trying to say he's the real deal. He's not the real deal. But I would love to be proved wrong. He's not the real deal. I mean, Evans had most of his fantasy points in 3 weeks when he had 10 catches for 200-something yards on back-to-back weeks. He's not getting 13 touchdowns this year. Vincent Jackson will come in, and also Doug Martin. Believe it or not.
Don't even say it. You know how that...
He's looking...
No, you know how that plays out. Do not trust Doug Martin.
I take Doug Martin first overall in my draft.
The muscle hamster is back.
Hey, they said he's lost weight, but that's another story. I'm out on Mike Evans. You guys let me know what you think.
See, to me, I disagree with you. Who would have thought I'd be the one defending the Aggie here? But here's the thing. Like I talked about last week, I think Jameis Winston has the potential to have a really good season. And while, Mike Evans might not have 13 touchdowns again, I do expect his yards to go up this year. And so I think it'll basically be a wash. I could see him definitely backing up what he did last year. And I think he's a solid number 2 receiver for most teams, and maybe even a number 1.
Well, even liberals are entitled to their own opinion, so. What do you think, Rieke?
I mean, I've watched Mike Evans live for 2 full seasons. If there's anything I've learned, it's not to doubt Mike Evans.
True. Very interesting.
I mean,
however,
I only could watch him on TV last year, but the man produces when he's on the field. Sometimes I don't know how he does it. He doesn't seem like he's the fastest receiver, but he's got so much heart. Somehow he always produces. So for some reason I just can't go against the stats. So I don't know.
I just don't. Oh, he had 4 receptions in half of his games last year. 4. That's it. Now again, you guys have valid points. He could be more involved. He could do better. So I mean, long term, that arrow is pointing way up. And in 1 or 2 years, I think Mike Evans could be the number 1, pick if they can get a quarterback. We'll see.
All right, so now the wide receiver that I'm staying away from in drafts, and this is a pick that I think a lot of people will be surprised by. I'm staying away from T.Y. Hilton, and the reason for that is I do still think the Colts offense is going to be super prolific. Obviously, they are a pass-heavy approach, but the problem is now T.Y. Hilton had a huge year last year. They responded to that by bringing in Andre Johnson and using their first-round pick on another wide receiver in Philip Dorsett. Plus, I'm expecting an increase in production from Dante Moncrief. And then they've also got 2 tight ends. There's only so many balls to go around. So I think as a result, I think T.Y. Hilton's production is going to take a hit. And I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 again this year like he was last year. There's just too many weapons there now.
Very interesting. I mean, you know what's funny is I've been so anti-T.Y. for so long. And then I guess he just proved me wrong last year that I just believe he's legit. And I've watched the Colts in the preseason. Andrew Luck loves him some T.Y. Hilton. Now, Andre Johnson, yes, he will still, and I think Andre has a good season also. I don't see why they can't both do it, but when it comes to what you're saying as far as his productivity compared to last year, probably will not reach that amount.
I'm interested to see how Frank Gore plays into all of this. Last year they had absolute nothing at running game. We know who that was, but Frank Gore could try to still run, and I don't think Andrew Luck's going to be able to pass for as much as he did last year. And to Trent's point, there are so many receivers there and tight ends. I'm concerned as well about T.Y. Hilton.
All right, so let's move on to tight ends now, guys. Aaron, what tight end are you out on?
I am out on Jason Witten. It's nothing that I have against Jason Witten per se. It's more of the guys that are going behind him, I just think are probably better than Jason Witten. For example, Jordan Cameron, Zach Ertz, Julius Thomas, Delaney Walker, Jordan Reed, or even if you're willing to wait, Antonio Gates, I think they could all do exactly what Jason Witten's doing and have way more upside. How do you guys feel about the other guys in the upside? I just think it's way higher than Witten's.
Man, it's tough. It's very tough. I'm actually an advocate of thinking the boys are going to be playing from behind, just because I don't think their defense is going to be that great. But for all the people that are cussing me out right now, I still think the Cowboys will have a good season. I just think they throw a lot more this year because their run game is nowhere near what it's going to be like last year. So I could see Jason Witten in a PPR league being good. Other than that, stay away from him.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Jason Witten is the number 6 tight end coming off the board now. And that might have been the case 2 or 3 years ago. I just don't think it's the case anymore. Jason Witten has had a Hall of Fame career, but he is not the same player he used to be. So I agree with Rieke here. I'm out on Witten.
Side note, this could be the weakest tight end year that I've seen in a long time.
It really could.
and the strongest QB year.
Yeah, it is kind of scary to see Travis Kelce as the number 4 tight end available. That doesn't exactly scream production at the position.
Yeah, but we'll see.
So
my tight end is going to be a guy who has been given multiple chances. He could be the Chris Davis of the NFL, but Zach Ertz has not panned out yet, and I don't think he's going to. I just don't think he's that good, personally. Now, he is kind of battling a questionable injury. Last I heard, he was probably going to be back for week 1, but I'm not exactly sure yet. However, even when he is healthy, Zach Ertz is going to give you nothing but frustration.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me, real
Yeah,
quick, I wanted to mention also, speaking of injuries, I forgot to mention, T.Y. Hilton also has a concussion right now, so that's another reason you want to avoid Hilton. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Jeremy.
Oh, you're good. I was finished. What are your thoughts on old homeboy Ertz?
Well, for me, Zach Ertz, it is tough because I look at that Eagles offense, and it's so prolific that you would just think that their tight end position would produce, but it just hasn't. So I don't know if it'll be different with Sam Bradford running the team now. But until I see it, I don't think I can expect Zach Ertz to be a top 5 tight end like a lot of people are expecting.
I mean, why would it be? They got the rookie Aguilar, they got Jordan Matthews' second year, and those guys are killing.
Not to mention all the running backs.
Right?
But the way I see it is they're going to pass, and their offense is going to be on the field all the time. So they've really only got Aguilar and Jordan Matthews catching. Like, who else? Riley Cooper? I mean, someone's going to have to catch passes. Like, those two are going to get their passes, but I think this could be the year that Ertz finally gets a chance to actually be out there for a majority of the snaps and catch a lot of passes.
Yeah, we will see. Very interesting point. Well, Trent, give us the last pick at tight end. And
last pick at tight end, last pick of the show. The tight end I'm staying away from this year. And again, this has more to do with his draft position than the player himself. I picked his quarterback, and now I'm picking him as well. I'm out on Jimmy Graham. Again, he's the number 2 tight end coming off the board. That's really not that surprising. He's probably going to wind up being the number 2 tight end, but tight end is such a non-important position that I think you need to wait to take your tight end. And so I'm just not spending a third-round pick on a guy who I'm not even sure how he fits into his offense yet. So I'm having a real hard time spending a third-round pick on him.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it too, especially now. I kind of think it was more of a tactic, and it was more of kind of like a sarcastic comment. But when Jimmy Graham said he'd be blocking 70% of the time, a bunch of red flags went up in my mind. So who knows? But yeah, at that position, third round, I can't see it being worthwhile. However, we could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, usually you want to, in the third round, you want to get guys that you know you can count on. I don't think Jimmy Graham's that guy. I could see the reason, like, you want to get a leg up on the tight end position, since there aren't very many other good tight ends. To Trent's point, Travis Kelce, 4th tight end. But I mean, I can't see justification for using a third round pick on Jimmy Graham.
All right, so those are all the players that we are out on. Now, before we wrap up today, I think, Aaron, you had another player you wanted to talk about specifically that you wanted to give some advice on.
Yes, Arian Foster. I think Arian Foster, if you draft him at the right time, could be one of those guys that wins you your league. As I've said earlier, in the playoffs, your bench isn't going to matter. It's only going to be your 2 running backs, your 2 wide receivers, your tight end, and your quarterback. So, if you were to wait on Arian Foster, I'm about to tell you how long I think he's going to be out. You could have a guy that going in the late 1st, early 2nd round before he was injured at the price of maybe a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. So I think Foster could be out maybe 2 to 4 weeks based on the timetable I'm hearing. That could put him in line, best case scenario, to come back September 27th against the Buccaneers. So the Texans-Buccaneers, September 27th. Obviously, injuries are super fluky. You never know when someone's really going to come back. But even, say, a couple weeks after that, you still have Foster in your fantasy football playoffs, which is when it really matters. The regular season is important because it's going to get you to fantasy playoffs. But if you can have a game-changer, 1st round, 2nd round pick that you drafted late for your fantasy playoffs, it could make the difference.
Very interesting information, and I agree as well. If you can snag Arian Foster late, I mean, he's going to get injured again. We all know, but if you can snag him late, that's awesome. I know some people. A buddy of mine named Seth got him in the 5th round, and his team looks amazing on paper.
So, Aaron, let me ask you this though, because you know more about the Texans than I do. Now, when Foster was out last year, Alfred Blue played pretty well. So theoretically, let's say Foster does miss 4 games, and Arian Foster has about 350 yards at that point. What are the chances that the Texans would go to more of a 50-50 split, or is this absolutely Arian Foster's job no matter what Alfred Blue does?
I honestly think it's Arian Foster all the way. I mean, Alfred Blue, I don't think he looked that good last year. He's going to get yards just based on pure volume, but he does not find the holes very well. Obviously, he's going to be better in his second year, but Arian Foster is just a game changer when he's on the field. And it's honestly not very close. I wouldn't have any concern, even if Alfred Blue is playing really well. If anything, it might give Foster a couple less carries, and he might actually be more efficient. So,
oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Definitely valuable information regardless. So we'll see what happens.
All right, well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have you back on at some point later down the line.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It was a blast. Yeah, it was awesome.
Great, man. We're glad you were able to be here. Now, again, we really appreciate everybody listening and continue to listen. If it helps you, let other people know. Let's see if we can help some other people out. Now, week 1 is a week from this Sunday, so we got less than 2 weeks to the opening game, which I am so ecstatic about. Now, remember, all the drafts are happening, but once FanDuel starts back up, the regular season, that's something we particularly pride ourselves on, of doing well on that. So make sure to keep listening, and we'll keep giving you good information.
Yep, and of course we'll revert back to our more traditional format where we give you player picks for each week based on matchups and that kind of thing once the regular season gets going again. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you guys listening. If you have any questions, remember you can always write on our YouTube page, or you can comment on the Facebook strand that we always tag everyone, or you can simply text Trent or I, and we'll talk about it on the air. So, had quite a bit of that going on this week from different people, just asking advice, and I mean, 2 heads are better than one when it comes to picking drafts. So, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next